Hey, welcome back to Starting Stand Up, the podcast where I point a microphone at my midlife crisis and try to make it funny for the stage. This week I discovered something weird. I spend Wednesday mornings teaching meditation, and I try to help people in this community in Maine I live in find some more peace for their life. And then I spend some afternoons doing cameos as Dr. Rick from the movie, the cult classic Fired Up. Dr. Rick is the world's most arrogant douchebag pre-med student, and somewhere between those two personas that are in me, there might actually be a comedy act. So today's episode, we're going to try to figure that out together.
Oh man, that's rubbish! That's rubbish!
Tip to a big fan of the show for pointing out a Bill Burr interview on Smartless. Smartless is a podcast that I'm sure you've heard of. Most have. They're making hundreds of millions of dollars, it seems. But anyway, Bill Burr was on there, and it was, just listen to it. And it's really kind of my dream, really. And he joked that I should be suing them, but I don't think I have a case yet. But really, a lot of the Bill Burr interview was about his start and his first open mic, his second open mic in Boston. And it was fascinating, and I loved it. And it made me more excited to get into that kind of stuff. I have a dream of being a completely different person and being able to do 2 shows a week where one's an interview and one's just me talking. One of the things Bill Burr said that was cool was that he's been doing his Monday morning podcast since 2007, where it's like he had to like dial in on a cell phone. This is before the iPhone was invented for the youngins listening. And he, was uploading episodes to MySpace. And I didn't realize this because I used to listen to his podcast, but it's just him. And it started with just 5 minutes, and then it kind of went to 10 minutes. And now he just rants for about an hour. But he doesn't have guests. And I remember that was the first podcast I ever listened to, I believe. It's been so old. And so maybe there's some weird subconscious influence why I also just sit here and talk. Bill Burr is a gift to the world, incredibly funny, incredibly talented, and hardworking, and all those things. So my hat's off to you, and I love listening to you. And yeah, thanks for subconsciously inspiring me to do this. We've had some realizations this week. I'll share them with you. One is there was this, I don't know if it was a tweet or something, this idea of asking the MIQ, most important question, and the value of asking good questions. And when you are overwhelmed in life, or you're working on a creative project, or you seem to have some sort of dilemma or problem, instead of searching for a solution, search for the best question to answer, the most important question. I did this little exercise, and I'll share it with you. I wrote, most important question as it relates to this project that you're listening to. How do I improve my stand-up act as quickly as possible? That's it. That seems to be the most important question. Gets right down to it. Speed, highest rate of improvement. And my answer was simple. It was 3 words. Right. I had some clarity in the sense after my last performance, I watched the tape, and because I've been acting for 20 years, I actually played a stand-up comedian on a USA show. I got murdered, but I talked to Kevin Christie, who's a stand-up, and he said I should take a look at Bill Hicks. If you haven't heard of Bill Hicks, very famous comedian, does some really deep stand-up. Maybe I'll add a clip here right now, really get going.
We're tripping and the car goes, the door is ajar. We pulled over and thought about that for 12 hours, man. Shit, how can a door be ajar?
But I did Bill Hicks, and I don't remember the show that I was on USA. It was a Blue Sky in Plain Sight. That's it. With Mary McCormick. Yay. Anyway, I performed a stand-up set. I completely forgot this. I performed a stand-up set on camera as an emerging or pretty famous stand-up comic on a procedural in 2007 or so. And Bill Hicks was the inspiration. What I'm getting at is that, and I've done hundreds, if not 1,000 auditions. I've performed in theater. I've performed in high-pressure situations, probably the most of which are like wedding toasts. But my point is this. I have got to, the best use of my time is just writing. It's obviously getting up there is important, but I would say it's less important. And I think my first open mic was just get it out of the way, get up there, have a loose idea of what you're going to do, and then just get up there and wing it. And you, for those who've listened for a while, you have heard those. And those are sort of a result of not writing. And now, or writing, but not really crafting. So this is all to say that it's time to craft. And so once again, this episode will be another soup to nuts episode. I'm excited about the topic that is so important to me. It's, if I didn't have to have a career, I honestly will tell you that I would probably meditate all day. And I would probably read Dharma books and research the great Saint Siddhas, and I would just noodle that world. And I do love to guide meditations. I have felt like a complete imposter beginning, but now I don't. I don't think I have got anything together, but I think I'm so passionate, or I'm so interested in the subject, that I end up just passing along the wisdoms that resonate with me. And one of my deep frustrations when you study kind of the great yogis or spiritual leaders that are long gone, way before the internet existed, or the people who sort of brought Eastern philosophies to the States starting in the 60s and 70s, people like Muktananda, flowing robes, Maharishi, and then Ram Dass picks up the torch, and that whole Eastern world begins spreading like wildfire through all these sort of acid-taking, you could call them hippies, but the sort of consciousness expansion of the 60s that we're still riding that wave now, and I am. It's fascinating stuff for me, figuring out or contemplating ultimate reality, contemplating this idea that your self or ego is sort of vapor, is an illusion, which is a very hard thing to wrap your head around. Thinking about this idea of concepts and words really just being like not the thing itself, but just boxes around reality. We're doing our best with these words. It's all we have. But come on, I mean, think about what is intuition? What is these deep layers of wisdom that we seem to be born with, these personalities that just seem to download into our babies. I find it completely fascinating, past lives. And ultimately what I find the most fascinating, or I'm the most interested in, is transcending my humanness almost. It's sort of elevating my vibe, if you will, like living with as much integrity, love, connection, compassion, and trying to live in that place, but getting completely sideswiped by life and by pressure and by career and by just the simple fact that I have chosen a profession that is so look at me. And in this weird ironic twist, I've spent 20 years acting, where your career gets better and better the more famous you are, the more people are just blowing sunshine up your ass. Oh my God, you were amazing in that show. And all it is doing is reinforcing this ego, this sense of, oh, I am so special. And I think a lot of people at middle age begin to shift, where there's an old saying where you spend the first half of your life trying to become somebody and the second half trying to become nobody. And that resonates extremely deeply with me. Ram Dass's documentary, Becoming Nobody, I recommend. But you begin to intuit that your life and all the suffering that you're experiencing and all the unhappiness you're experiencing may be connected to your attachment to this concept of a self and how being in this important thing that wants things and will only be, if only I had those things, then I'd be happy. You've heard this all before. So the irony that I am now doing probably the most look at me art form is not lost on me. However, it tracks, and I think I mentioned this in earlier episodes, it tracks only because there are ways to express yourself. There's ways to explore the dilemma of trying to be somebody in order to make a living while also trying to be nobody. And the trick here for me is to somehow take these potentially confusing thoughts, if you're still following me, and perform and somehow make this the topic of my stand-up sets. Because otherwise I don't have interest. Like I said a couple weeks ago, airplane jokes just aren't going to do it for me. And I was happy with this mindfulness stuff. It's obviously a topic I'm extremely obsessed with. It's talked about ad nauseum. You know, there's apps for mindfulness. Mindfulness is a word that is many different definitions and misunderstood and has been commodified, and people are trying to profit on it. And a lot of it just makes me sick, you know, this idea of like, oh, I'm going to be this like enlightened person and just extract money from people by branding my enlightenment online. That's sort of the negative view of it. The positive view is, hey, if I'm learning things that are helpful for me, why wouldn't I share them in case they're helpful for other people? And you can look at everything like that. Oh, they're just sharing something that's important to them on Instagram or TikTok, and we can benefit from it if you want. If you don't, just swipe away. But there's that dark side of just self-serving profiteering off of kind of faux spirituality. So I've been writing about this, and I've been thinking a lot about it, and I was really encouraged and happy that premise I stumbled into, where, you know, mindfulness doesn't make you enlightened. It just sort of makes you fully aware of what a disaster you are. I'm excited to perform that, but we're going to hone that, get those jokes tighter. So the soup to nuts today is a callback to a rant I did months ago where I was pretending to be a bully who was bullying school kids for not believing like profound spiritual truths, where like a bully is like, Rumi has a quote, "The wound is the place where the light enters you." Other contemplatives have said that, you know, like God enters when your heart breaks, you know, these sort of sayings, inspirational sayings that you'll hear on Instagram now. But like a bully being like, "Oh, Jimmy doesn't believe the wound is the place where the light enters you. Let's get him." And that's a weird idea. And if I just did that on stage, people are just going to look at me like, well, what's wrong with this guy? So, but I didn't want to give up on it. It sort of popped into my brain, and I'm glad I didn't give up on it, because I ended up discovering something, which was I played a beloved bully in a movie called Fired Up. And there was a very funny comment. I think I posted something, and a guy goes, some guy heard like an excerpt from the podcast, and he goes, "Will you just save us a whole load of time and just go up on stage as Dr. Rick?" If you haven't seen Fired Up, Dr. Rick is this very arrogant, douchey. He thinks he's a doctor even though he's pre-med, and he's a despicable human being. He's an absolute idiot, but he thinks he's amazing. And for whatever reason, that character, I do cameos for people using Dr. Rick, and it has always been something that's fun to do, and the attitude is just in me. I can't explain it, but it's funny to me that I'm sitting in a meditation class sort of espousing this idea of like relaxing around your heart and like opening to beauty and connection and love, and just letting yourself be filled with wonder. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm doing a cameo as Dr. Rick, where I'm just like ripping on someone who just had a baby because they like did the wrong. They like didn't have they used a doula, so they're a bunch of pussies. But the way we got there was me sort of thinking back to like silent retreats I've been on, and realizing that my ego and my inherent like competitiveness like never goes away even there. Not to bore you, but the last time I was at a silent retreat, my second was a 7-day at the Insight Meditation Society in Barre, Massachusetts. And you show up, and there's probably 80 people there, and you don't talk for 7 days, and you're just alternating about 45 minutes of sitting meditation, 45 minutes of walking. Do that all morning, eat lunch, go for a walk, do your chores, like I swept the floors, and then you go back and do sitting, walking, sitting, walking, sitting, walking. It's basically sort of 7 a.m. to 8:30 at night, meditating and eating, and a little bit of work. And for whatever reason, the second one I did about a year ago, I was just very locked in, meaning I almost couldn't stop meditating. Where they'd ring the bell, everyone would go to lunch, and I would just stay. And I remember feeling this like pride, like, ooh, wow, dude, you're like locked in, man. You're like crushing it. Like, oh, look at all these pussies going to lunch, and you're just gonna keep going. And then I would be like, Jesus, like you're so aware of your thoughts that you're like, oh yeah, look at that. And you could sort of personify that person. You'd be like, oh, there's like Dr. Rick at the silent retreat. And then I was like, ooh, Dr. Rick at a silent retreat. There's something there. And that connected then to the bullying, because Dr. Rick is a bully. And I think ultimately what I want the larger premise is that everyone is like trying to win at being spiritual. Even, that your intentions are good, but your humanness, unless you fully, turn into a rainbow, you're still going to be a dick sometimes, and you're still going to be, and I think ultimately why spiritual people can be so intolerable for so many, and why someone like Donald Trump can be so fascinating and become this like cult leader for so many, is that Donald Trump, while never admitting a mistake and is obviously lies and never admits it, he kind of owns being a bullshit artist, whereas spiritual people pretend not to be full of shit. And I think ultimately what everyone is just responds to intuitively is someone owning their light and their dark, and not pretending that they're not judgmental when they are, or not pretending when they aren't selfish when they are, because we all are. We're all judgmental, we're all selfish, and the people who are just owning it and not beating themselves up for it and can laugh at it are ultimately the people that you want to hang out with and are charming and are fun. And the people who are intolerably insufferable are like the prigs who think they're these self-righteous, or they think that they're higher than you or more evolved than you. And unfortunately, the sort of mindfulness world is filled with those people that, I don't talk to anyone there, but there's no question that people brag about how many silent retreats they've been to. People brag about how much they meditate. The ego is so subversive, and it's just going to come in, and it does it with me. And so I want to get on stage and basically just rip on myself about this subject, which will then give me license to rip on the kind of entire spiritual world that I am, relatively intimate with. What do you think? Have I lost you? All right, we're going to take a break right after these words. Kirkland Signature organic, raw, and unfiltered honey has become a staple in my pantry. I am currently on an all-sugar honey diet, where I tube honey deep into my system all afternoon, while also eating B1, vitamin B1, thiamine, and magnesium glycinate. This protocol is not recommended, and I am not sponsored by Kirkland, and this is not a real advertisement, but I am tubing so much honey these days, but that's for another time. I just wanted to practice having sponsors. Okay, back to the show. So we spitballed this idea of the humble brags in spiritual life. Like, it's challenging sometimes being so sensitive to other people's energies, like I can literally feel when someone isn't doing their inner work. Like, I just feel so blessed that my daily 4 a.m. meditation practice has allowed me to transcend the need for caffeine, Since I started microdosing, I just can't relate to people operating at lower frequencies anymore. That kind of vibe. And I'm guilty of commodifying ancient wisdom for my bathrobe company, Wakanichi, Ram Dass, and I don't think he came up with this, but do less, be more, which is an ancient wisdom. I just slapped it on a luxury bathrobe, because nothing says transcend materialism like $120. Actually, I was with a family and friends discount, $200 terry cloth costume. I think there's some potential for mindfulness products. A mindfulness mattress. You're basically taking a 2,600-year-old person like the Buddha, and you're just trying to milk him for cash. And there's something funny and dark about that. Start a crypto coin, Mindcoin. Mindcoin. Manifestation needs blockchain technology. So back to the bully thing. So this idea, I was writing about bullies, and then this idea that bullies have there's bullies everywhere, and that there are bullies in wellness, and that you can kind of tell when someone has just got like a ton of like rage inside them, but are pretending to be peaceful. You know those people. Just a lot of dark shit that they're not in touch with. Like, I could see a fun act out where I notice someone at retreat who's not in touch with their rage, and they're like acting all peaceful, but I can see the pain and the bitterness and the anger and the misery underneath it. And I just want to say to them, it's okay. Let out your inner bully. Let it go. Let it out. Let's do an exercise. And then I would encourage these people to bully people and retreat. And then I can act out their spiritual bullying. Yeah, and you could set it up in an act. Like, you can always spot someone at a retreat who's suppressing their rage under a peaceful veneer. Like, their namaste sounds like it's being said through gritted teeth. And I don't have any really great jokes about this yet. And then I was exploring, basically other people being bullies. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. What if I brought some Dr. Rick bullying to a mindfulness retreat? And then it kind of went like, look at all these fucking amateurs. Go straight my spine is, dude. Your posture is giving me spiritual acid reflux, man. Spine straight, like you actually respect the Buddha. This isn't nap time at Burning Man. Hey, Darth Vader, you're not going to reach nirvana through your mouth. The breath goes through the nose, bro. The nose. Must have skipped meditation 101, dude. Like some guy who's just shifting around. Are you having a seizure? Or are you trying to meditate, dude? Pick a position and commit. This isn't spiritual musical chairs. And I high five the mindfulness teacher. I get annoyed when people are it's become a parody. When they're listening to a speech and they really resonates. We get it, dude. You're having profound insights. Why don't you profound insight your way into some actual silence, man? I don't think any of that's that good. But, and I think ultimately we're trying to figure out the core truth to explore is that it's hard. It's genuinely depressing to spend years doing spiritual work, like thousands of hours at this point on the cushion, meditating, teaching others about peace and acceptance and just being, and then still having this judgmental asshole living inside of you. Just Dr. Rick waiting for my blood sugar to drop before he just takes over. And it can connect to the pulling of the trash can in the snow and screaming and turning into Jack Torrance from The Shining. It's really the futility of trying to transcend our human nature, the fragility of spiritual progress. And that's our show. I mean, look, I went for it. I tried to transcend being human, and I tried to do it through comedy, and I still failed. Just as a note, if you do know me personally, I don't want you to think that I'm judging you, even though I am. No, I'm not. I mean, look, I really do love. I have a lot of love in my heart for people and their struggles and their shortcomings. It's all good. It's all good. You're good. You're okay. Everything's okay. And everything's going to be okay. Everything is perfect. Just doesn't seem that way. That's my message. Everything's perfect. It's all good. All love. All the time. I'm just so curious about how everyone's doing. How are you doing? Are you driving right now? Are you walking? Are you cooking? What else is going on? Are you feeling satisfied physically, spiritually, and emotionally? Probably not. Yeah, I get it. Look, it's a grind, man. It's such a grind. But I'm here for you. I really am. And I'm going to figure out how to make you laugh. And I really do apologize if I didn't today. But stick with me. We will figure it out. And I'm going to reliably do it. All right, lots of love. I'm going to lead a quick meditation here just because I want to reward you for your hard work. Let's do a brief guided meditation. Okay, bring awareness to your breath. Notice how your chest rises and falls. And now bring gentle attention to that review button that you haven't clicked yet. Just feel the resistance arising and the excuses forming. And notice how your ego wants to just close this app and move on with your day. But then remember that paying forward is the key to life. And that the only way that I'm actually going to get a Kirkland Organic Honey raw and unfiltered advertisement to continue this journey, this quest, is if it spreads and is shared and enjoyed by more than you, by others. So, thank you, and I appreciate you. Now go tell someone you love them, hold them, tell them just how much you love them, and if appropriate, make love to them.